Welcome to the Level Set. I am honored to be joined this morning by the Dr. Charles Alexander and the one and only Michael Wesley Jones. And we are blessed to be living through another Black August. And that's going to be the topic of our conversation today. But every now and then, the chef has to eat and consume what he has cooked or she has cooked. This is one of those moments. We are not here to just challenge everyone, but this is water and foods that we are going to consume ourselves, and we are challenging ourselves. There are tenets of Black August that are essential to the viability of any nation inside of a nation, but specifically to ours. We want to talk about those today, and in no particular order. We're going to talk about those tenets. And I am going to um, defer to these two gentlemen as much as I can today, because this is brilliance that needs to be absorbed. So I'm going to open the floor up, and whomever feels uh, motivated to give us an overview of what Black August is. I got shooters, so I can
Uh,
pass it to anybody.
okay. I'm gonna make the extra pass, and Charles gonna take the shot.
Okay. Well, that is so I get the hockey assist.
Right.
Good morning. And so um, we can work it a little bit backwards to give context. So Black August was first celebrated in the latter 70s, like 78, 79. Um, I believe the Black guerrilla family, um, members of the Black guerrilla family who uh, were imprisoned and had emerged within the California prison system um, as what the system perceived, and I suppose what they were, a political or social political bombshell. And they started to celebrate Black August to commemorate the the lives and recognize the killing and the assassination of um, Jonathan and George Jackson. George Jackson had been in prison he went to prison. So he started off, he was by his own words, in his own, in his own estimation, he was a petty criminal growing up. And he went to jail on committing a petty crime and got a crazy sentence, like one
Forever.
1 year to life.
Forever.
And
Yeah,
too
right.
far. That's it. Forever.
And but while there, he came in contact with some um, socially conscious, political minded brothers who put who encouraged him to study, and so he started to study um, kind of the global revolutionary movements. And so between that study and this is going on, um, this is going on with him in the prison context, as the civil rights movement is shifting from the kind of the passive resistance into the Black Power movement. And so then he also ends up influenced by the Black Power movement, and he becomes, while incarcerated, he becomes um, a member of the Black Panthers and in the prison system, and where he's housed at the time. I think initially he's at San Quentin. He becomes the field marshal at that facility, and so during his incarceration, he writes Soledad Brother, which is it's really an autobiographical sketch, and it tells the story of how he got from birth to that very point in his life.
So,
Mhm.
I ask you to put it just period. You forget when you live a long time. You forget the impact of stuff. Some stuff you with, but if there were a list of books or things that every Black person in America, especially as they are evolving and going through their educational process of who they're going to become, George Jackson's Letters from a Soledad Brother is a powerful piece of literature, thinking, whatever term of art you want to use, as has ever been written by a Black man in America. It would be on anybody's must-read list. And I can tell you, when I picked it up and read it more than 50 years ago, you couldn't put it down. Like, you read it in a day, 2 days, because you literally couldn't stop reading. I mean, it's not an opus or anything, so it's comprehensible. But I would read it. I was reading it in real time in that era, so it meant one thing. But it would be extraordinarily enlightening now for anybody to read it now. The way I feel like when I read what I call late James Baldwin. Okay, that what it would have meant to me then, but what it means looking back, or from this point in time, looking back to that, and both of them, for example, George he'll explain in 1972. He's explaining 2025 to you, and so it's not just any book. It's one of those. It'll change how you look and think. So go on. I'm sorry, but I had to say that while I remembered it.
And I think really that is the point of that book. I think that book is an excellent. I mean, that book is not just a critique. It's not solely a critique of the system.
Doc, you froze.
It's that CIA blocker again, right?
It is, man. I mean, it is. These are
He was
not
about to say
accidents.
he was about to say something revolutionary and profound, and that's when the sound always go out there.
That is it. That is it. He'll be logging in
Yeah.
shortly. But Mike, his critique was well, actually his statement was it's not okay. There he is, Doc.
Facts,
You
yeah.
you said it's not just a critique of the system, but
You got me?
Yeah.
got you
Okay.
right
You're
Yeah.
there.
back.
So it's not just a critique of the system. It's a critique about the system's impact on his development. So it becomes a self-critique also. And when he, because like he acknowledges, as I said, he acknowledges, you know, the the type of foolishness that he used to get into as a child, as a teen, as a young adult. He acknowledges all those things. Um, Shaping, you know, the manner in which he looks at what he did. And so he goes from kind of his acknowledgement of what he did to then putting what he did in the context of being a second class citizen under an oppressive white supremacist system. And then he starts to view himself as, you know, a victim and product of the intentional behaviors of the oppressive force, right? And that's really what the book is about. And then, and so he has all of these different conversations, some of which are with himself, some of which are with his mother, some of which I suppose are with his brother. I don't quite actually remember, but I'm sure they are.
A lot
And,
of it is letters to his. Lot of it is letters to his younger brother, Jonathan.
mm-hmm, yeah, and then
You're muted again, Doc. Doc, you're muted again. I see you, but I see your mouth moving, but I can't hear you.
if I go outside, if I have a better connection. And so, and then some of those letters are between him and Angela Davis. And so, um,
He is Dr. Alexander's transitioning to a place that will have less influence by the powers that be, and we'll be
Yeah.
able to hear him. But as we do that, Mike,
Him and Dick Cheney in an undisclosed place, right?
constantly, constantly. Yeah, Dick is hooked up to something that's allowed his ticker to
Yeah.
outlive its warranty. I had no idea that man's ticker would outlive. He is beyond the warranty. I can tell you
Right.
that. But Mike, as you listen to those, that foundation that Dr. Alexander laid, and you reflect on that book, what are some of the things we need to be doing with this information that has been laid out? And I say that, and I want to remind us, we're in a country that's only 250 years old,
Right.
and we have had blueprints by individuals that are almost 100 years old.
Right.
What are we to do with all this information that we have right now?
Well, for me, Larry, this is something I've thought about. We either don't know how to do it or been too lazy to try to do it. I don't know which is good. But I think over the last 10 years, I've been fortunate enough to be retired and writing and mentally active. I believe that there's a black aesthetic in America that we have created, even through our oppression. We have created a worldview and aesthetic. It happens in our music, it happens in our art, it happens in our theater, and all of this is about how we understand, view reality. And we've also produced this extraordinary intellectual framework of the black experience, of black thinkers thinking about the black experience. Now, we don't embrace none of that. We don't educate ourselves in the world as a function of this black aesthetic. We absorb somebody else's definition of the universe and our place in the universe, which keeps us confused and lost. And I'm often, I was struck by something I heard in the first philosophy class I ever took when I was a freshman in college. It was called Major Questions in Philosophy. And like all Western philosophy, it starts with Socrates, or starts with Plato. And it's Socrates saying the unexamined life is not worth living. And it starts with the kind of introspection. It means thinking about literally who you are, what's the universe, to examine that so that you live an intentional life, a conscious life, whatever you decide to do with it. I mean, the interesting thing about great thinkers, they don't tell you what to do. They try to tell you how to think about what you do. And then you decide, once you know how to correctly think through things critically, you then come to your own answers about the universe, your place in the universe, what justice looks like, what truth looks like. And I would say we have produced extraordinary Black thinkers and artists who have examined life through the Black perspective, or the lens of Black Americans in America, and what this means. What we have never done systematically, and we've just run away from it in the last 50, 60 years. Before that, we had it, but we couldn't control it because we didn't have enough structure to control the structure. But it allowed, it's really what has helped us to survive and navigate this place called America. And I would suggest, and as we wait for Charles, and it's kind of what we was talking about in the green room before we started, that us, the 3-4 of us at Level Set, should start thinking more intentionally about what is it Black folks need to know to live. So who do you need to have read and why? Charles talking about George Jackson. I would venture to say 90% of the Black people in America never heard of George Jackson. Those and the 10% that have heard of it couldn't tell you who he is really. The three of us have read the book, and maybe 1% of the 10% after that. So, but but if you're Black in America and you don't know and haven't read George Jackson, you are unarmed in a hostile place without the ability to defend yourself. Mm-hmm. And that's what it means not to have read Frederick Douglass. And to be honest, I didn't read Douglass when I was young. My appreciation for Douglass, Baldwin, even Martin Luther King at the end has come this late in my life. And so what I think the challenge is for somebody like me to tell you, here's what I know now. And that's kind of why I think I mentioned this before, why I call the columns that I've written in American for the last 10 years on further reflection. And I think that's what engages me in our work here. I'm going to call it, not the good time we have with each other, but I'm going to call Level Set our work here. For me, it's on further reflection. And because you guys are not teenagers or college students, you're old enough to also be reflecting on stuff. And really, that's what we're trying to give people the benefit of. But we need to tie that effort back to some grounded theory that here's who you have to know, and be familiar with and had spoken to in terms of their work, for you to understand who you are now. And you will not learn that. Uh, uh, what is it? Audra Lord said, you can't use the master's tools to tear down the master's house. And so this notion of who we are, what's our understanding of that, we have that. I mean, the quote, the ancestors have spoken to us about this. And you can even see their evolution about who they are at their end versus where they started. And you don't have to literally go on the journey. You can you can follow their journey. It'd be like, I can't get to China. You're in Europe, in Italy, particularly in the 1400s, 1500s, whenever he was there, and you said, I can't get to China, but I can read Marco Polo. Okay, and because I read Marco Polo, and you can say, okay, I think I kind of get it. So we got this body of extraordinary intellectual and aesthetic work. Okay, that if we had a university, this is what we'd be teaching, because this would be our canon. It's a black, literally, that's what I think it is. I think it's a black canon. So you can make the connections between how profound Louis Armstrong is at the beginning of jazz and what a voice means, or what. And so all of these things, you live long enough, you think about it enough, you start to see how these dots connect. And we just need to figure out how to help people get there quicker, so they don't have to be as old as me or even as old as you. That we can tell somebody 25, I can take 30 years off the struggle of your life. I can't stop you from struggling, but you don't have to repeat everything that we did to get to where we are now. That we need to figure out. It's why you go to, I love the way they say it in Europe. They don't say go to college, they say the university. Why do you go to the university?
Go to university.
Go to university so you don't have to repeat every step. You can say, I understand the journey now, and I can start here because they already paved this much trail. So I understand why I'm in this space right now and where this space came from and what my role, what my challenge is going forward. And we have become just like Americans in the sense that we need atomized individuals now, and we no longer value or create as a value that our whole is greater than the sum of our parts. Okay, that fundamentally we are who we are based on the whole that we make, not the individual sums that we are. And that's how we got to, and so one of the legitimate debates we ought to have if we're thinking about Black August is, do we want to be integrated? The last question Dr. King left with us. He took the journey and he got to the end. He said, I ain't so sure now. So we don't talk about white folks want to talk about Dr. King in 1963. But if you take 1963, August of 1963, in the speech for peace at the March for Peace, Jobs, and Justice, which is what that march was, is not as important as the letter from the Birmingham jail. And the issue he raised with moderate white folks, the way I describe those people, or white people who know better, who won't do anything about white people who don't do better. Okay? And after 5 years of that struggle, at the end of his life, he said, I ain't so sure no more. That even and what locked him into that path was he was a Christian theologian. So the possibility of redemption and forgiveness were a requirement of his faith. But he's also a critical thinker and an intelligent man that has to deal with the empirical reality that he's looking at. And at the end of that journey, what he told you is, I don't know if that was the right path. And that's what we ought to be debating. Okay? He took the trip. He was totally invested at a spiritual level. And he's telling you, I'm not sure.
And, Mr. Jones, as you bring that point up, I want to reiterate or iterate how important it is for us to consume these ancestors in their native form. We do not need modern day spins on them, on W.E.B. Du Bois. Someone that wants to talk to you about W.E.B. Du Bois, go read Du Bois.
Right.
We haven't read that to the extent that we should. And I'm not blaming us for that, because we're the only race in history that could be beat and killed for reading. So there's some
Right.
epigenetic things that we have to get over. So I will never be critical of us in that vein. But what I'm stating is simply we have ancestors that have made these sacrifices for us, that we can go and now do something gangster every day, which is sit and read, sit with a book. Dr. Alexander, as you reflect on what Mr. Jones has stated, and reflect on Black August, I'd love for you to chime in.
I'm gonna start with your statement. I do blame us. We can't we can't have it both ways, and so either we know or we don't, and so we be acting like we know, and so if we act like we know, then we literally have to do better, and so, but it does speak to, like, so you can't quote Malcolm and then don't know how to get to wherever it is you're trying to go. Malcolm's book is a coming of age book. Soledad Brothers is a coming of age book. And so it starts with the self. So like we can't keep saying, and I think this is the craziest thing I hear from grown folks. This is what they don't want you to know. Well, then know it. If you know that's not, if you know that this is what they don't want you to know, that should be your key, that you need to know it, that this is a threat. But don't read it because it's a threat to him. Read it because it's good for you. Right? And so
And
it
let me
can't be.
let me say this, and I don't think you're wrong. I don't. I do not think you're wrong. But for me, I have got to, I mean, just seeing and I know you see the same, and I know Mike Jones does the same. I just can't be critical of us, man. To that extent, I don't mean holding account. I'm not talking about that. But I mean, the war that's being waged on us is just so overwhelming. I think that I would rather spend that time coaxing you in the right direction, but I do not think you're wrong.
And I'm not saying we need to
But,
spend a bunch of time, beating up on ourselves. I'm
wait,
saying, like, in the context of even, of talking about George Jackson. George Jackson says, and Malcolm says the same. I was a petty criminal. I'm a thief. I'm a clown. Until I was shown the light. And
so
once I was shown the light, I took responsibility for XYZ.
I'm going to say, I want to hop in here because you and Larry are both right. Like you said about Larry, yeah, both of you are right. And I'm going to put what at some point elders have to do, or those who know better have to do with those who are not, of us who are not doing better. You're going to have to be like a good coach. And a good coach does two things. I try to encourage you. I try to help you understand what it is you're trying to be and understand what you have to do. And I'm aware of who you are as a player. But I also got to win. I also got to win a game. I also got to win a season. And I'm also going to beat in your ass when you don't give me what I got to have to win. So I got to be able to do both of them. I got to be able to uplift you as an individual, and I got to be in your ass for you to play better. Because if I'm too empathetic to you as a player, then you ain't going to give me the shit I need for me to win. And I can't have that. So going to your point, Charles, I'm going to, once you know better, I got to demand that you do better. Now, if you need some help in getting to know better, part of my job as the coach is to help you learn how to know better. But once I know, and you know, I'm not going to let you dog me because now you're being disrespectful. And you can't be on this goddamn team if you won't give me the 100% effort, because that's what I'm asking to all your teammates. And it's disrespectful to them to let you be on this team and you mailing it in. And I'm not going to have that. And that's what it means. So you help people to become that black leadership. You know, wait a minute, I'll stay with you. I'll show up early with you. I'll stay after practice with you. And as long as you trying to be good, I'm going to be there with you, trying to give you all the chance. But once we go to work, your ass got to give me what I got to have. Okay? So I got to be able to do both of them things. It's like being a parent. Baby, what you need? And then turn around and say, have you lost your fucking mind? All at the same time. Okay? Don't mean I don't love you.
Or as my mother told me when I told her I wanted a $40 golf shirt, and we had a family of 7. My father was the only one working back in 1983. She said, "Why just one? Why don't you get 6?" And threw it in my face.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
that's how cold-blooded we got to be.
Yeah. So I'm going to say both things can be true at the same time because they are.
And they are true. But it is about looking at, so yes, I think the same thing about the struggles we have in the political space, and the same things about the troubles that we have in the educational space, where yes, there's certainly enduring aspects of the trauma that we lead, the trauma that we were exposed to historically impact us at the epigenetic level. That's the context. So once you know that,
you got to do something.
Now you got to go. And so you can't keep swinging, or you either can't keep swinging or you can't keep watching that pitch. Once you see how the ref, once you see how
if I call the game,
how you see how he calling the game. And so if he giving that pitcher that pitch, you might as you need to swing at that. And so at a point you have to make your adjustment. You got to make your halftime adjustment. You got to do whatever. And so again, like so if you read this book, And that book, and part of the reason why the brother was assassinated is because people were reading that book, and it was impacting people. It was impacting people in the prison system across the country. It was impacting people in the streets across the country, around the world. He had emerged to be a major threat that they thought that they could contain because he was in the system. But that brother had settled on being the revolutionary that he was. And so ultimately
prison couldn't hold him.
the prison could not hold him. And so ultimately they assassinate him. And that gives rise to a bunch of other rebellions. The most notable was Attica. And so by the time we get to um, August of 78 or 79, I think it's 79. By the time we get to the August of 79, you have Black August. You have the celebration of the lives of the freedom fighters, of the political prisoners who were fighting for humane conditions in the prison system, much the same way we need to be fighting for humane conditions in life. And so it was this, great parallel, and that was the reason why he had appeal on both ends, in that what he was talking about was applicable outside the walls of the prison. It was the nature of life for the Black person, and in general. And so that's how it becomes a thing. But you also consider, when did those 20 and odd enslaved Africans arrive in the United States in 1619? It was in August, right? Mike Jones referred to the march for freedom and jobs. When was it? It was in August. Nat Turner's rebellion was when? In
In
August.
August,
And so,
the March
um,
on Washington.
and so, you know, James Baldwin was born in August, right? I mean, we got this August stuff, right? That that we need to recognize for its profound impact. But it is definitely that we have to recognize it, and we have to recognize it for its own sake, and we have to be able to take it and consume these things, and then apply these things, and that's really where where that's where we're challenged, and that's where you see a another manifestation, of those epigenetics that you're referring to. That it's like, we, instead of mastering the revolutionary practice, we are in the midst of mastering escapism. And so,
I want you to say that again, because that is a profound dichotomy, Charles. That's not just a throwaway line, because there is a difference between resistance and escapism.
mm-hmm.
So just add a little depth to that.
And so I'll so again, like, so our great pastime of sports, right? So let's look. I like this topic, and I like I like this particular aspect of of what I'm about to say, because it establishes this point. Colin Kaepernick's fight is literally the poster child for our revolutionary thought.
Right.
Colin Kaepernick says, "I'm going to take a stand," right? Colin Kaepernick takes his stand and is consequenced for his stand. Black folks say, well, I'm not going to watch football because of what they're doing to Colin Kaepernick. Well, Colin Kaepernick ain't played no football since. Niggas is watching football. So either you're going to take your stand or you not.
But
So
hold that point, because I want to go back to another historical example. 1965, the NBA All-Star Game. The NBA 1965, with the exception of Jerry West and Bob Pettit, all the great players in the NBA, the All-Star Game are black. Okay, there's some great white players, but overwhelmingly, the stars of the NBA are black. They don't have any contracts. They don't have pension fund. They don't have health care. Matter of fact, they ain't even recognized. The owners won't even let them. They couldn't even bring an agent or a lawyer to the contract negotiations. They were slaves on a plantation. Even if you're my age in 1965, you looking at them like they got it like that. And they were struggling with that. And, everybody had to keep a job. But the stars, okay, the lead at the All-Star game saying we ain't playing till you recognize the union and say we can get a pension for and live. And 10 minutes before they was supposed to, it was the first time an NBA All-Star game had ever been televised, okay? And them brothers and a few of them white boys said, we ain't going. The TV cameras be damned, y'all got to, but we ain't gonna play.
And Mike, ironically, you juxtapose that to this year. I thought about you explaining that to us in just great detail. And the WNBA are being paid roughly $70,000 a person. They had an All-Star game a couple of weeks ago, had the opportunity to do the exact same thing. But what did they do? They wore shirts that said I should be paid my worth
Well,
and put nothing.
I'll even go one better than that. For the men, George Floyd, the sisters say we ain't playing. LeBron and them were prepared to say they wasn't playing. That's really where they were. And then white interests got Obama to call them and say you ought to play. And they should have said, Mr. President, kiss my ass.
And I'm going to go one further on that, Mike. They wasn't going to play. No, they was going to play. They just needed Obama to get them off the hook.
Okay.
Them niggas was going to play.
Okay, but my point is, but the point I was going to make, brother, is that Oscar and Baylor, Bill Russell and them, they didn't ask the average player to step up, because I know you ain't got no leverage. They can cut you in the morning and get another one, okay? But it ain't but one Bill Russell. It ain't but one Oscar Robertson. It ain't but one Elgin Bill. So if you took all of the elite stars in the NFL that was black, without them, it ain't no NFL. So what if the stars would have said, well, I ain't playing till till y'all get him right. Okay? I ain't asking, y'all don't make enough money and y'all ain't got enough leverage to stand to do what I'm getting ready to do. Okay? And to whom much is given, much is required. So there's two ways to look at your life, man. You could say, I worked for all of this and it's mine and I earn it. or what Ruth's uncle said to her when she said, I can't speak up for the Jews because the king don't really know I'm Jewish and I'm the queen now and all that kind of shit. And I could lose all of this. And what did her uncle tell her, Larry? Who is to say that you were not sent to this kingdom for a time such as this? That the
That's
reason
right.
you got this shit is for this time. Okay, that you didn't put it together; it was put together for you, cause this was gonna be a time that somebody like you was gonna be needed. That's what the fuck we've lost. We've gotten so American, and these are some pagan, un, uh, lacking any spiritual moral sense of the universe. Literally, for anybody, American culture corrupts you, and we have been corrupted by
And
the
we
culture.
are corrupted.
Right,
And
We
and
are
so
corrupted
right.
from every vantage point of the fabric of this place
right,
throughout, across the board, period.
And so when you go back and you look at the Colin Kaepernick issue, not only have we gone back to the NFL, the whole reason he was protesting was police brutality. That that became other than what the purpose of the protest was. People were protesting in support of him for his sake,
right,
while he was protesting police brutality. The police have shot no less than 1,000 people annually since he started his protest. That's what the protest was about. How is it that we don't understand that, except for escapism, right? We and so it became, instead of fighting the fight for the folks who were getting randomly murdered by the police, we start this faux revolutionary protest in support of Colin Kaepernick, not the protest itself. That's what we do. This madness again, like similar, this madness that we got with LeBron. Of course, he's doing whatever he does, but he ain't the only NBA player with a school.
right,
He ain't the only NBA. He ain't the only NBA player doing anything that he is doing. Okay, so he got his boys a job. David Boston, a wide receiver for the Cardinals back then, his mama was his agent. Grant Hill's initial agent was his mama. We done seen all this stuff before. But these are the things that we've decided now are revolutionary. So it is revolutionary to align yourself with a multimillionaire. That's revolution now? That don't make no sense.
And in
That
essence, when we do that, it's revolutionary to solve the problems of this place, because that's all we're doing. His actual being is to be uh, that escapism tool, that piece. There's nothing revolutionary going, and that's the way he's making his money.
we
So,
serve the same role for black folks, black wealthy. We serve the same role for wealthy black folks. I mean, the black masses serve the same role for wealthy black folks as the Confederacy served for wealthy white folks. We carry their water. So the reason that the Republican Party can win is because poor white folks who ain't got nothing vote against their interests. And we literally do the same thing. We literally do the same thing. It's just that we're doing it not only in the political spaces, we're doing it across the board. And that is our our refusal to stand and deliver is that's the personification of escapism. That
let me ask you both this, because we've talked about this subject before, but we have this unique ability. to celebrate what we consider group success. I'll go back to a point that Dr. Alexander made years ago when a notable basketball player's son was given a contract. Dr. Alexander's comment was, well, that's good for him and his family. But
Right.
and so, what is this strange dichotomy? Why do we feel as if there is some vested interest in us when our plight remains the exact same, despite the fact that these individuals are being held out there? It's a duopoly from the standpoint that the system holds these individuals out there to say, "See, you can do it too," when in fact it's a setup from the beginning and also as a distraction and also escapism at the same time. Where should we land on it? How do we get out of this?
But Larry, to that point, and to Charles's point, black masses are in the same ecosystem or intellectual frame as white masses. Okay, so we just need the color version of this. Okay, that you can't give us the white folks and tell us you could be that, because we know we can't. You can't fool us with the white folks, because we know white folks ain't gonna let us be that. But if I can create some black folks and you know, some black 1%ers, and say you too can be that. So look what what we've done with sports. Sports used to be ubiquitous every place for us, from baseball back in the 40s and the 50s, because it was an easy game for us, to football, where ordinary kids who had some physical gifts and was interested in education got the chance to go to college, and from going to college, anything could happen. So that was democratic, small d opportunity. Now it wasn't equitable, because our shit wasn't as fair to us as it was to white kids. But from my era, you went to you, and over about 15 years separate us. When I'm a teenager, it ain't no more than 3 black guys on any major college basketball team, and damn sure wasn't starting. By the time you all are 15, 18 years old in college, shit,
It was reversed.
It reversed. If they had any white boy, and what you really knew was the white kid could really shoot, because he couldn't be the best athlete. And you would hear guys on the bench say, if especially a smaller white player came in, had nobody seen him play, and the bench would shout out, "Shooter in the game." Okay. Don't leave the shooter open, because I know he wouldn't even be here if he couldn't shoot. Okay, he's Steve Kerr. Okay, fundamentally, I mean, you can guarantee that. But my point is, that used to be democratic. Now they've taken that democratic opportunity that was available to any kid anywhere, black or white. The thing I was texting you guys about the NBA thing on Hulu, Jerry West is a poor white kid from West Virginia, same age as Oscar Robertson, a poor black kid from Indianapolis. Both of them, hard scrabble background, end up being iconic, elite, all-time great players with extraordinary careers and stuff. That was open to them. Now, for any kid to have an opportunity at pursuing college on an athletic scholarship, you either have to be extraordinarily gifted as a youngster, somebody discovers you, or you have to have parents who are upper middle class who can pay for the process now. That whatever sport you're in, they can afford to pay. I have a granddaughter who is a freshman at the University of Alabama, Birmingham, on a full volleyball scholarship, one full ride, 100%, and also got academic scholarship to go with it. But her volleyball success is a function that she had upper middle class parents who could support her in that and who could travel and put it in all these leagues and all the stuff that you have to do where kids play now, where they get discovered at, is not at the public high league on Saturday. They have to be in these places, and only kids in these places are kids whose parents got money. Cooper Flagg is the best high school player in America, was the best high school player in America, college freshman. Not because he's the best athlete, but he was an athlete whose parents had the money to support his athleticism. And now that you narrow the opportunity pipeline, the only people in it are people of resources. And those are people with resources. He's probably the best athlete in the country in his age cohort. But go ahead.
In addition to that, so the money, and you need to it is increasingly necessary for you to have an elite athlete somewhere in you descend at some level from an elite athlete. Either both your parents, one of your parents, a grandparent, somewhere in there.
Uncle or aunt, somebody.
Yes,
right.
Yes. So gone are the days of, like the narrative for LeBron, like the narrative of LeBron, the narrative of D Wade, like that ain't happening no more.
Wait a minute.
And
D Wade was not even the best player in Chicago in his age group.
He ain't the best player in his family.
Right. Okay. Wait a minute. This is a funny story that when you said it made me that. That ain't Fly Williams. When the ABA was around for a hot minute, the St. Louis had you guys were real young, but St. Louis had the Spirits, right?
Spirit. Mm-hmm.
And they had a brother that played for them, James Fly Williams. He played at Austin Peay, and he was in the ABA. And Julius Erving is playing for the New Jersey Nets. New Jersey Nets at the time. That's what they were. So they come to town, and ain't nobody ever in the ring, but Doc gets 38, something like that, clowns. And so the reporter asked, it's a spectacular game. And so the reporter asked Fly, because he's from New York too, right? And asked him, is Julius Erving the greatest player in the world? And Fly said, yeah, Doc might be the greatest player in the world, but he wasn't the best player in the neighborhood. It's that kind of frame of reference. So, this stuff, like you said, Isaiah Thomas would tell you he wasn't the best ball player in his family.
He does the same thing. So where we are now, and Larry, to answer to your question, there's a degree to which this thing where we get all in, like we should absolutely celebrate, the achievements of whoever, but that ain't really it's a difference between celebrating the individual achievement and chalking this up as some kind of
for us,
right, racial reckoning or something, right? And so it's not a win for us. It is an individual achievement. And so but in our need the more we do that, the more we then have a need to like double down, right? And so again, I'm gonna use for this one, I'm gonna use Michael Jordan and LeBron. All right. So Michael Jordan gave Darrell Walker his first NBA job. He gave Butch Beard his first NBA job, head coaching job. He gave Leonard Hamilton his first NBA coaching job, right? Elevated Patrick Ewing to whatever you could be other than the head coach, and so which amounted to Patrick Ewing's highest position in the NBA. LeBron James has gotten his son a contract, and JJ, whatever his name is, from Duke.
Reddick.
Like,
yeah. And ran Darvin Ham out of town.
I mean,
Ran Mike Brown out of town.
Yes. And so our matrices are off. Our standards of measure are off. And some of this, and how do we get to that? I think it is an aspect, of course, fundamentally it's also always has to be some aspect of misorientation, but I think we also have material depression. And that is a function of this capitalist piece where we ain't even gravitating toward the person in these fights. We're gravitating towards the person's wealth, which is why it always ends up skewed. We fight these fights for millionaires. Why are they doing them like that? And even when we fight these fights for millionaires, we don't even fight these fights for whatever the moral, content associated with the situation is. Our fight is they let white folks do it all the time. That's our fight. So the brother shouldn't be in trouble, not because he ain't do it. He shouldn't be in trouble because white folks get away with it.
It goes back to that plantation mindset of the wealth of your owner. We're sitting up here arguing. We've talked about this on the show before.
My white folks richer than your white folks.
My white folks richer than yours.
Which is a very just obvious. You see the combination. You see the intersection between material depression and between material depression and psychological misorientation in that very space. That's what you're hanging your hat on. You hanging your hat on. Your master got more money. It's the same thing with black folks and pastors. Black folks ain't got no money. Pastor got a rose.
And you catch the bus to church.
You catch the bus to church.
And
you
you
walk to
catching
church.
Yeah.
You missing payments because you tithing. I got to pay my 10%, but you ain't paid your light bill, right?
Doc, I learned a new word this past month. Picked up a book and I completed a book on what's known as, actually, it's not even in the DSM, high functioning depression. And the word was atahedonia, which is described, and I believe that this therapist made the word up, which is described as a lack of enthusiasm and a lack of joy. And is this, well, it's easy to occur. Is this another manifestation of that? Because of our own lives, we are not even able to celebrate the small wins that you talked about in our own lives. So we are attaching ourselves to these individuals that we will never have a conversation with.
Yeah, I mean, I'd imagine that there's some, that kind of works into the circuitry, yes, and so anhedonia, that's one of the symptoms of depression, and but another symptom of depression that gets to your point is negative thinking and selective attention. And so to your point, I will I will ignore my incremental gains because I don't think, my negative thinking is everything's terrible. And so for me, my individual achievement, it don't matter because I feel terrible anyway. But you don't feel terrible because because your individual achievement is uh is minimal. You feel terrible because you're depressed. And so we get these things confused, right? And so and we have an attribution, what's called an attribution bias, in that we're making relationships where they don't necessarily exist, right? And so because we can't get any, because in that depressed space, we don't get the joy, right? That's what makes us then vulnerable to the escapism. That's why we drink. That's why we gamble. That's why we are fanatics, and that's why we're more enthused about the Cardinals than we are about, whatever's going on in our life,
Can
And
I,
so that's how all those things go together.
Charles? Can I ask? I want to ask you a question because as you were talking, I got curious about something. But you said the lack of joy and why we attach. There used to be an expression, a concept. If you ever been black on Saturday night, you never want to be white. Okay, and that's older than me. Okay, he said no. If you ever, he said if somebody white could be black on Saturday night, they wouldn't want to be white. Okay, and how, as a psychologist, how would you frame that? Because I'm even thinking about sinners just as a set piece. The whole notion of the Saturday night and the juke joint, that despite all of this shit that was going on in the lives of the sharecroppers, the oppression, the racism and shit like that, they could create some space for black joy. Black folks could create space for black joy, whether it was church on Sunday, whether it was Saturday night at the juke joint, didn't make any difference. Those were places where black folks could experience black joy before they had to go back to work in the depressed environment. But we could separate that from our joy. We've given all of that, we've given the black joy space away when we got integrated into America. And it seems to me there was things that we didn't have nothing to do with white folks. Black fraternities, black sororities, from the clowning to the serious. I mean, for the good times we had to the, but that's our stuff, and then it can't even be. And our stuff was so black, it couldn't even be shared with nobody white. You couldn't explain it to nobody white unless they was a musician. And for example, white musicians, jazz, blues players, once they experienced black on Saturday night, they didn't want to go back to being white, and they didn't. I mean, they became different kind of white folks as a result of that. So, professionally speaking, I just describe what I perceive as a physical phenomena. Okay, the change from this to that. Did I get that half right? And if I did, what does that mean psychologically? Or when did it happen? How did it happen?
So that ability to go find joy and immerse yourself in it in and of itself is an adaptive process, right? The issue becomes when that becomes the process. right?
Okay.
So you gotta go and relax. You gotta go emote. You gotta go express. You gotta find your way to get it out. We gotta come together. That we are a social and a communal people. Like, so all of that has to happen. The problem becomes, and when it becomes escapist, is when that individual is like, um this is the answer. Like, this is
Okay.
going to solve my problem. This is not solving your problem. This is simply a reprieve. This is a manner in which you get support so that you can carry on. This is like the timeout. You go to the bench, you get your water, your Gatorade, they wipe you off, and then you get back in the game.
I'm glad you defined it that way, because you said there's a difference between it becomes escapism versus a reprieve for a moment. And now it has become escapism for us, and we never leave the bench, even when the buzzer goes back,
Even with,
and we're
yes,
supposed to get back in the game.
yes,
Okay.
and that's where too many of us are stuck in that space, or we're stuck in this other space where we like, we are literally making up causes. There's real causes to be fought. There's more people right now arguing who's the greatest between LeBron James and Michael Jordan than what are we going to do right now today. That's what people are arguing about. People are arguing, there were more people concerned about P. Diddy than there were the global implications for the genocide in Israel, right? And it's like, that's escape. All of that stuff is escape. How does that emerge to be the most important thing, in your life? And so we find these things that they start off as points of interest, then they become distractions, and then they go from extractions to all out escapism, because we're using those things then to avoid whatever the primary, whatever the actual existential threat is, right? And so and how that comes to play with probably depression in general, and material depression more specifically, is that, again, in this thing, which is predicated on capitalism, if if the game is fixed, right, you can't, you just, you're not gonna go to the line. You're gonna get them, you're gonna get fouled, and you ain't gonna get no calls, and you just get the score what you get the score. Either the ball is going in or it ain't, because you ain't getting no help from the referee. You can either play
But
harder.
Charles, to that point, and I want you. Here's my question for that. I would have said 50, 60 years ago, when I'm coming along, that empirical observation is true. So you in the locker room knowing that you can say we 12 down before we start. The scoreboard says 0-0, but we 12 down. So we know that in order to win, we got to whoop their ass, okay? Because of everything you just said. And if you lost a close game, because maybe they could play, okay? All white teams weren't mediocre. There were white kids that could play. But let's say they're good and they can play. And you lose by 4. Close game, given all that, but you didn't get no calls, like you said, none of that. When you left, you didn't say you got cheated. You said we didn't play well enough, because we knew we was gonna get cheated when we showed up. So we had to beat the cheat. That was part of the game. So
That's baked in. Yep.
So the mentality factored in the fact that they cheating, we ain't gonna get no calls. That shit, we knew, like water is wet too. So don't jump in the pool with your clothes on, because if you do, your clothes gonna get wet. You can't be surprised at that. So I would suggest that that was something to overcome, because it was the given in the environment. So you were successful in spite of the cheat, okay? Because you figured out how to beat them when they cheat. Because, matter of fact, that's what your whole upbringing was about. How do you hustle white folks? How do you beat the fact that they cheat? Because you can't. And every now and then you'll find somebody white that don't cheat, but don't count on that. Okay, that's a lucky break that you may get. So when, not so much when, but how did the metamorphosis begin to happen where we thought we were, is that what the civil rights did first? If we thought we were supposed to get treated, that we're supposed to get calls on the road? For lack of a better way to put it, I always say, I tell people that politics is, to be a politician is like being a professional athlete playing on the road. The public is the other team's fans, and they ain't never supporting you. Okay, at best they might respect your game, but they're rooting against you. And the media are the referees, and you didn't pay. You're not paying for the referees that night. The home team pays for the referees, so you don't expect no calls. But if you go be a champion, you got to figure out how to win on the road.
You got to win on the road.
You got to win on the road, despite the fans, despite the refs. If you go be a champion, you have to win on the road. And you can't say where the fans was hostile and the refs don't call shit. Well, that's, yeah, I know, we on the road. Okay.
And the only reason you ain't got to win on the road is if you the number one seed. And we ain't the number one seed. We second class.
Right. Okay.
So you got to win on the road.
So you got to win. So you got to win on the road. So when did we lose the understanding of that we ain't a home team and we always play away games?
I do think, like, I know that we. So another issue with trauma and this legacy of trauma and the epigenetic impacts of trauma is cognitive distortion, right?
Doc, we're going to go and just real quick definition on epigenetics.
So epigenetics is how your genetic makeup and environmental conditions come together to kind of formulate, who you are, right? Kind of basically that's what it is. And so you have you hear people have a genetic predisposition, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my dad is tall, his father's tall, I'm gonna be tall. So that could happen, right? But something could happen in the environment that turns, so you got this thing, your genes are either firing or they're not, right? So it's kind of like they're either on or off or whatever. So but something in your environment can impact that, and so you're built, you are constitutionally built, you're genetically equipped. I'll say equipped. You come in equipped with that same DNA, but there could be something in your environment that impacts that, and then you don't turn out like the rest, right? And so over time, we've had all of these. So trauma is an adverse piece that impacts our genetic code, and so the thing, another thing in the United States And again, why we got to read, like you ain't gonna read nothing that talks about, the impact of trauma on, you know, the, the genetic development of Black folks. And if you want to read about the impact of trauma on genetic development, you got to read about Holocaust survivors, because they're the only people that have been traumatized. Black folks, we wasn't traumatized because we could take the beating, and so and so,
And
but
so, in other words, we can pass trauma down from one generation to the next without it even being
with
learned.
no, at some point you just got to get over it, right? That's the kind of the thing that we experience, and so for many of us, we've actually internalized that thought, right? And those things, they impact how we process what has happened, and so that's where we end up being kind of vulnerable to the cognitive distortions, because and this is also where, you know um tying in again the revolutionary thought, like people continue to misattribute, the concept of cognitive dissonance to Frantz Fanon. There's nothing that I've ever read and nobody I've ever asked this question that could tell me, well, first of all, that could tell me where exactly he was to that he created this. But cognitive dissonance is a thing. I just don't think that Frantz Fanon came up with it. But
Right.
when you have these two opposing thoughts, then you're going to choose the one that alleviates the tension, right? And so you got all of these things going on, and so coming out of the civil rights movement, um, and people's thoughts and interpretations of what we had allegedly lost because of integration. My thing is that most things that we say in the material space, in terms of what we lost because of integration, those are cognitive distortions. Or what we lost because of integration, Mike, is what you're actually asking about. It's some self that we lost. We lost aspects of constitutionally, fundamentally, who we were in this process. All of that, we used to have Black banks. No, we lost all our banks in the Depression. that's
Right.
when that's when we lost our banks. We didn't lose our banks in the 60s. We lost our banks in the 30s. And so, but that's not knowing, right? So that's not knowing information, and you see how things are now, and everybody else is doing good. We ain't doing good. He ain't had no money now. He got it. We still ain't doing good. It must be us. It's not the system. It's us. And so it, so we've lost our in large measure, we've lost our discernment and our judgment because of that material piece. We're vulnerable to anybody that's on TV. We're vulnerable to anybody that we perceive have money, because we equate media exposure and what we perceive to be finance, financial stability or prowess, even, to mean that person has, credibility. And then that's how we end up with misleadership.
Charles and Larry, I know we could go on forever, but we can't, because eventually we got to stop and take a breath. But Charles has brought us back to the point that we started this conversation in, even before we started recording. And that for me is we
That's
need intention.
that's called showing your work.
Okay.
That's called showing your work. We had a math equation. We walked through it and talked through it, and we showed the work. But go ahead, Dr. Jones.
we started talking about intentionality for us on level set because everything we've talked about, somebody can learn on their own, but that's an extraordinarily inefficient way to do it. The reason you go to university is, yeah, you could read about Socrates, or you could read Plato, but it helps when somebody can explain to you what Plato is trying to do, and then explain to you what a Du Bois is saying. Okay, not tell you what he said. This is what he means. Now, how you respond to that, what you do with that, all of that's on you. But I'll help you understand it. So when I think of us, I only said it, I only thought about it like literally today and even right now. We run an intellectual rec center, okay? We like Candy or Whoa. You can come in and we open up gym, there's a ball, and everybody can start playing because that's what we do. We come in, we play, and you know what? You can learn how to play that way. You can learn it's pickup. Okay, you can pick it up, and if you got talent, you'll pick it up. You watch some older guys play, and you put that in your game. But that don't make you a basketball player. Because to be a basketball player, you got to be able to play with four other guys. And then the five of you all have to have an idea and a structure of what you're trying to get done in a unit. And that requires a coach who teaches. And so when you start practice at the beginning of the year, particularly when you're a freshman or you just got there, somebody has to lay the foundation. I remember my son who played at something. He's played 4 years college ball player, and he said by the time I graduated, I finally knew what we were trying to do. But it took 4 years to actually get to the point where you really, I got a grasp of the game. I really understand this, and you could listen to us. And we like guys at the rec center, man. We can play, and somebody can watch us or listen to us, and they can pick stuff up, and then they can go try to figure out what we meant or whatever. But as this is Black August, and part of it is to rethink and rededicate about what you do, it comes back to we should probably be more intentional about what we talk about when we talk about it. And we got to be building, start at a point and building, somebody can have an understanding of the universe or the world or America as we say we understand it. The reason this works for us is we all were individually good enough players to know what we were talking about to each other. We've read a lot of the same stuff. We've thought about it the same. So we can play with each other at the rec center because we brought enough game. But for somebody who listens to us to learn how to play, we ain't teaching shit. Okay, I mean they might pick something up, but you could leave. You would have to know why you're listening, and we'd have to say something that made some sense for what you were trying, as opposed to somebody saying, I go to church every Sunday because I get something every Sunday that makes it easier or better for me to be who I am during the week. So that would be my close on what we ought to think about doing August. That how, as we go forward, after how many years we've been doing this, man? We've been doing this for a minute, but we've done it on purpose. I mean, it ain't accidental, but it ain't intentional either. Okay, it's really more our intellectual recreation and exercise with each other. Like somebody say, "I see you at the golf course. I see you at the gym," and we'll work out, and it works great for us. And the real question is that can we help make it better for anybody else?
That is the question.
That
And
is the question. That is the thing about, in addition to everything you said, right now in Black August, we know that there are some tenements that surround this month. There was an intentional aspect of fasting from sunup to sundown during Black August. There was intentional aspect of studying things that are edifying to us. There is a intentional aspect to fight this for these rights that we need, and to increase your actual workouts and physical activity. So those are four things we can implement intentionally right now, and they should start carry on. And now the prescribed fasting is one that is a liquid fast as well as a food fast from sun up to sundown. Can't promise you I'm going to do that every day, but I'm gonna strive to do something close to it. But that's the intentionality that we can work with today. Those are things that we can do today that will make us better.
Well,
and
Larry, excuse me, Charles. I just want to say, for me, I'm not so much focused on what we do individually with that, but using that as a metaphor, analogy for maybe how we should think about this space. You know what I mean? And that was my point. Go ahead, Charles.
Oh no, your point was a global point.
Yeah.
It was a macro point, yet and still it was micro from the standpoint of what we need to be doing. Intentionality is always, broken down into both of those facets. But as we look at partaking in the month, I think that those are things that the founders of the month implemented, because if there's a group of individuals that need to do these things, I believe it's certainly this nation inside the nation that we're trying to build.
and whatever we do, it's like if we do these things, let's say in the context of of the tenants, we can't do these things and get disconnected from self, because that too, that's kind of a part of this quandary that we find ourselves in, is that there ends up being this disconnection from the self at the individual level and the collective self, right? So our ability to to have that social that social connection and and productivity and so the fast it's cleansing, and but it's really about mind over matter. It's really to fast is to is literally to say no, right? It's this it's and so if you can tell yourself and you can discipline yourself, you know not to consume what what sustains you, in theory you should be able to say no to anything, right? That's part of what the fast is about. It's about that self discipline. But and so I think in terms of Mike's proposition to us, the gauntlet, both before the show today, Enduring, is, not only for ourselves, but finding that ability to get as many people as possible to think about how, like, what do you actually have to do to grow? Like,
Well put,
that,
Charles.
that becomes the part.
Well, that is the part. And I don't think that we need to add anything to what you all have just stated. And we have made a commitment to you to be intentional about our aspect in that and to challenge ourselves and to be in community with you all in that regard. So stay tuned. We're trying to get better every day. We thank you for listening. Please hit the like button if you are viewing this on YouTube and you have a question. Feel free to send them to us, and we certainly will respond. But until next time, we are signing off from the Level Set, and we hope to see you soon, better than we are today.